What is up, guys? So today, another video on the Rainbow Cup already, I know. So today I'm actually going to be taking a look at the top 5 bug type Pokemon. Now just a quick disclaimer, all of this is from PvPoke. Meaning that you go to the PvPoke rankings page, you pull down for the Rainbow Cup, and then like, wham, you've got all these, bug type Pokemon on there. So you literally just type in bug, and then you basically can look at the top 5 bug Pokemon. I try to take those top 5 and kind of figure out why they're top 5 and kind of give some insight into them. Of course, there are some more niche cases. There are definitely more specialists, more generalists out there in the bug typing alone. Don't feel like these are the only 5 Pokemon that you should choose from when building a team, because that's not what this video is about. This video is about trying to analyze why these 5 are the top 5. Got it? On those rankings, if you actually look through there, we actually have an interesting set of top 5. So we actually have Fortress, Beedrill, Haircross, Scizor, and Scizor. Alright? So those are our top 5. Now, starting from the top, let's just work our way down and actually go through these. So Fortress here. Fortress actually only has one weakness, which is actually going to be fire type moves. But he does have a quad weakness to those fire type moves, so it does kind of make it a little awkward. Now, as far as the fast moves go, we do have Bug Bite or Struggle Bug. And I've already done a deep dive on Fortress. If you haven't checked that out, you can definitely go back. I literally just posted it earlier the same day that I'm recording this. So if you want to like get real deep into the moves, I do go a little bit more in depth than I will in this video, but basically Bug Bite just makes a whole lot more sense than Struggle Bug considering the actual just raw numbers that it puts up. So with having a bug type fast move, it does end up meaning that we have a really good shtick here going after the grass types. Being that grass is weak to the bug typing, we can actually just kind of build our target audience as the grass types. We want to just really start targeting those grass types with a bug type fast move, which makes Fortress a really good specialist towards those grass type. Next, we're actually going to get into the charge moves here. So we do have 3 different charge moves: Heavy Slam, Earthquake, and Rock Tomb. So with those 3 moves, it's kind of a like toss-up between them. I did go a little bit more in-depth in this in the deep dive, but basically if you want speed, you're gonna go for Heavy Slam. If you want like an insane amount of coverage, then Earthquake and Rock Tomb seem to be the way to go, because Rock Tomb is actually gonna hit a lot of the flying types for super effective damage, while Earthquake is gonna actually cover a lot of neutral damage just straight up front. It actually covers a lot of the fire and a lot of the electric straight out of the gate, so you might want to consider, like, do you want speed on your Fortress or do you want coverage? Kind of a toss-up there. I also do think it's notable to say that depending on what other parts of your team you already have set up, picking between some moves on Fortress could end up being helpful if you look at the other parts of your team and kind of figure out where you're lacking coverage. Because if you're already lacking coverage in one area like fire types, then you can choose either one of these moves. If you're lacking area in the flying types, then Rock Tomb makes sense. If you're lacking area in the electric types, Earthquake makes sense. But if you just need general damage, then Heavy Slam would make a lot of sense. So it just kind of depends on what you really need for your team for what you should choose for your Fortress. Next, we do have Beedrill here, which if you're into regionals, Beedrill already may be like a powered up Pokemon that you have, so definitely nice to not have to spend so much dust. But Beedrill actually carries 4 different weaknesses here: Fire, Flying, Psychic, and Rock. So of course we'll go over more of this in a deep dive whenever we get to Beedrill, but basically it's going to come down to, in the fast move, whether you want to use Poison Jab or the Legacy Bug Bite. If you do have the Legacy move, I don't think there's any reason to get rid of it, of course, but it just kind of depends on which direction you're trying to take your Beedrill here. Poison Jab does seem to be the best like all-around neutral type damage to a lot of the Pokemon. Of course, it is going to be resisted by a couple of different things, but in general, it's a very good like neutral damage move. Bug Bite is pretty good against the grass types if you have it, but honestly, I do feel like maybe Infestation would be a little bit better, only because you get an insane amount of energy gain off of Infestation compared to Bug Bite. It might be better to tune this Beedrill to a speed monster. Sacrificing just a bit of damage for 2/3 more energy per turn is just insane. Because if you think about Scizor, Scizor is a super low cost move and it's already going to be just wildly fast with that. Speaking of Scizor, Scizor for the win. I mean, seriously, this move is so fast, and if you tune this Beedrill to be a speed monster, you're gonna have so much shield pressure on your hands, it's crazy. So Scizor is the quickest move that we have. Aerial Ace is only 10 more energy to fire than Scizor, and then Sludge Bomb is actually only 5 more energy than Aerial Ace. So all of our moves are relatively close in energy here, but I definitely say to pay attention to your coverage here, because I think PvPoke prefers to have several different bug type moves here, but coverage may be a little bit more important in some areas depending on the other parts of your team. Like for instance, if you're using Poison Jab, then Scizor makes a lot of sense, and then possibly Aerial Ace. While if you're using Infestation, maybe Sludge Bomb and Aerial Ace makes a little bit more sense depending on what you need coverage for. Considering that they're all relatively low cost, it would not be a bad idea to just have a really fast Pokemon on your team that can basically cover a lot of different interesting Pokemon. Next we do have Haircross here. So Haircross actually has 4 different weaknesses. We've got Fairy, Fire, Psychic, and then a 4 times weakness to Flying. Not too shabby, but Counter, I mean, what more can you really say about Counter? I honestly think that Counter would be a smarter move here rather than Struggle Bug, just because Counter puts up a lot more energy, a lot more damage, and it just seems to be a well more rounded out move than Struggle Bug would. Plus, you do get a little bit of nicheness with that fighting type damage because you can actually hit a couple of things for super effective damage, not too many. The other thing that Struggle Bug could have here is a pretty good effectiveness towards the grass types, but we are giving up a lot of energy and a lot of damage just to have a super effectiveness to that. Whereas Mega Horn may be the way to go if you're going to be using a grass type weakness anyways. I definitely feel like Counter and Mega Horn would be way better suited than having Struggle Bug to combat the grass types. Mega Horn is our fastest charge move here, with Close Combat coming in second and then Earthquake being our slowest move. But I kind of feel the same way with the charge moves here as I did with Fortress, where it kind of just really depends on your other team members depending on what you want to choose here. Mega Horn makes a lot of sense to combat the grass types, while Close Combat will help in a lot of neutral situations, and then Earthquake of course will help with those fire and the electric types as well. So it just kind of depends on what you're lacking coverage in whenever you're building this Haircross. But also remember that Mega Horn is definitely the fastest move, so it makes it the most fluid to actually use Haircross. And then Close Combat and Earthquake are relatively close, only 5 energy difference there. But, you know, it just kind of depends on what you need. Next, we actually have Scyther here. So Scyther, unfortunately, does have the most weaknesses out of all the Pokemon we've talked about today. A weakness to Electric, Fire, Flying, Ice, and a 4 times weakness to Rock really hurts him. In terms of our fast moves here, Fury Cutter seems to be the way to go at first, but here again, it just kind of depends on what you're tuning this bug type Pokemon to be. Air Slash definitely could be substituted here, as it would help in the grass type matchup, but so would Fury Cutter. But the difference between the two of them is that Air Slash wouldn't be resisted by the fire types, but it would then in turn be resisted by the electric types. So it just kind of really depends on which way you're kind of taking your team. Depending on which way you need to go, he does have 2 different moves that can help you get there. And then we do have Steel Wing, which unfortunately I was not impressed at all with Steel Wing on Scyther here. Didn't have that great of energy, didn't have that great of damage, and in this cup it doesn't have that great of coverage either. So it is more of a generalistic move, but other than that, that's really the only thing it has going for it. Now on Scyther here, we do have 2 moves that kind of play a similar role, but there's a slight difference between the 2. We do have Scizor and Bug Buzz. So if you're actually going for maximum efficiency, Bug Buzz makes a lot more sense, because in the time that it takes you to get to 2 Scizors, you would have done the same amount of damage as Bug Buzz. So while Scizor is way faster and it would help you with a lot of shield pressure, Bug Buzz may be more of a like closing type move up against those grass types if you're wanting to tune it that way. Like maybe you go with Air Slash instead of Fury Cutter, then Bug Buzz may be more of a like closing type move, or if you just need that shield pressure, Scizor would definitely be the one to go with there. And just like with the Beedrill, we actually do have access to Aerial Ace here as well, so that's actually pretty nice just for some more options. But the big one is Night Slash. So we actually gain a dark type move, which dark types in this cup have a lot of power, only because they have such a neutral matchup to a ton of the meta. It could actually help a lot if you have Night Slash here. It is a fairly low cost move, but its biggest benefit is just having a ton of neutral damage that it can be dealt out to the rest of the cup. And just like with our Beedrill here, I definitely do think that it kind of depends on which way you want to take your team, whether you want to go with Scizor or Aerial Ace, again depending on which fast move you end up going with, and then having Night Slash to just help have some general coverage for anything that just might be a surprise to you would really help if you're running a Scyther this month. Last but not least, we actually do have Scizor here. So Scizor carries the exact same typing as Fortress, which ends up making him only have one weakness: fire. And unfortunately, it is a ×4 weakness to fire, so you do have to be careful there. But in a lot of ways, he's totally different from Fortress here. Being's the first one is that we actually have Bullet Punch as a fast move. So Bullet Punch actually is pretty decent. You do sacrifice half an energy over Fury Cutter per turn, but you do add in a whole extra damage. So not too bad. Unfortunately, I do feel like it would be way more of a general type move. Like if you're wanting a more generalistic bug type Pokemon, then Bullet Punch makes a lot of sense here. But if you're tuning this Pokemon to be a grass type like Annihilator, then you definitely want to go with Fury Cutter. Plus, Fury Cutter has the benefit of getting you to your charge moves that much faster. Now, the charge moves are pretty similar to Scyther here, where we actually have Scizor, which I've talked about this entire video. It's an amazing move. I do not want anybody to have the wrong idea that Scizor is a bad move. It is an amazing move. I definitely think that Scizor is probably like the star of a lot of these bug types. But we do actually have Night Slash again, as well as Scizor, and then we actually do have Iron Head. Unfortunately, Iron Head is the slowest of all of Scizor's moves, so it does kind of make it a little less like important in some scenarios, but it is a very good generalistic move. As long as you don't have both Bullet Punch and Iron Head, I think you can tune a Scizor to have a pretty niche use case while still staying kind of generalistic. Whereas if you had both Bullet Punch and Iron Head, you would be a complete generalist in a lot of scenarios, and you may actually be able to take out some Pokemon, but you may start losing to some of the Pokemon that you would normally beat if you did carry any type of Fury Cutter or Scizor moves. In either case, I definitely do think that Night Slash is a must, and considering that Night Slash is faster than Iron Head and it's going to still do a lot of neutral damage, I definitely do think that that would be the way to go. Maybe doing like Fury Cutter, Night Slash, and then Scizor would probably be the best possible moveset for Scizor, which makes him a really fast but also pretty generalistic Pokemon to keep. And considering he only has one weakness to fire, you can kind of play around some of the Pokemon in the cup and still do pretty well with him. So that is actually all of the bug type Pokemon out of the top 5 according to PvPoke, and I'd have to say that the bug types do feel pretty strong this month. I mean, they do have their weaknesses just like every other type, but they do feel like they actually have a place in the meta, which is literally what I've been screaming for the last like 2 months. Bug types, I love them. There's no reason to hate on them this month. I'm really, really liking it. So that is actually it for today, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you so much for watching. Always remember that if you like to like videos, make sure you do that. But if you don't, you can be that guy. Otherwise, let me know what you have to say down in those comments below. And until our next video, I will catch you then.